The wine glass had begun to sweat, a single bead tracing down its stem like time itself slipping away. At the far corner of Luna and Olive, the kind of restaurant where tablecloths were pressed to military precision and violins played just loud enough to hide loneliness, Liam Carter checked his watch for the fourth time. 7:47 p.m., 47 minutes late. For a man who built empires by seconds, waiting had always felt like failure. Yet there he was, alone, staring at a table for two that looked increasingly foolish with each passing minute. 3 years had passed since his wife's death, but people still whispered his name with a kind of reverence mixed with pity. The billionaire who stopped living when she did. His sister Sophia had been the only one stubborn enough to push him toward something that resembled life again. "It's not a date, Liam," she'd said that morning, sliding a sleek invitation envelope across his desk. "It's a networking dinner. You need to show the world you're still human." He had rolled his eyes, already rejecting the idea, until Sophia added softly, "You made her a promise, remember? Don't let grief turn you to stone." That line, his late wife's words, had disarmed him like nothing else could. So here he sat, half out of duty, half out of guilt, pretending this blind date might mean nothing. The waitress passed again, her smile practiced but sympathetic. "Would you like me to refresh your wine, Mr. Carter?" "No, thank you," he murmured, glancing toward the entrance one last time. He'd give it 5 more minutes. Then he'd pay the check and call his driver. Outside, rain pressed against the glass, streaking city lights into watercolor blur. He almost reached for his phone when a small shadow appeared by his table. "Excuse me, sir," a little voice said. He looked down to see a girl no older than 6, holding a bunch of mismatched flowers, tulips, daisies, and something purple he couldn't name. Her shoes were muddy, her hair escaping from 2 uneven pigtails. "My mom's sorry she's late," she said solemnly, clutching the flowers tighter. She wanted these to be fresh. Liam blinked, momentarily unsure if this was some elaborate prank. "Your mom?" Before he could ask, a woman came rushing through the door, rain-slicked hair sticking to her cheeks, cardigan damp, breathing hard. "Ellie," she gasped, kneeling to the child. "Sweetheart, you can't just run ahead." She froze as her gaze met his. "Oh my God. You're Liam Carter," he finished dryly, rising to his feet. "I think we're supposed to be having dinner." Color flooded her face. "You're my, oh, this is mortifying. I thought—" She shook her head, exhaling a laugh that was half apology, half disbelief. "I'm Mia Lawson. I swear I'm not usually this late. The shop got backed up, and my babysitter canceled last minute, and then Mrs. Peterson's car broke down and the flowers?" Liam asked, glancing at the damp bouquet. "Those were her idea," Mia said, nodding toward her daughter. "Ellie insisted they'd make up for me being late." The little girl looked up at him, blue eyes wide with concern. "Do you like them? They're from our shop. Mommy says every flower means something, even when people don't know the words." Something about the child's earnestness hit a place he'd locked away long ago. "Then I suppose I should be honored," he said gently, crouching to her level. "What do these mean?" Ellie frowned in concentration. "The purple ones mean hope, I think. Or maybe bravery. Mommy says they kind of mean the same thing." Mia sighed, mortified. "I'm so sorry. I completely understand if you'd prefer to reschedule. Or not, honestly." Liam hesitated. He could have left. Should have, maybe. But the sight of the little girl clutching her flowers, rainwater still clinging to her lashes, stopped him. No, he said finally. You're here now. Sit. The waitress, sensing the shift, appeared with menus and a quiet smile of relief. A table for three, then? Apparently so, Liam replied. And for the first time in years, the corner of his mouth lifted into something that almost resembled a smile. They ordered simple dishes: pasta for Mia, grilled salmon for him, and a bowl of soup that Ellie insisted was fancy because it came with croutons shaped like stars. Between sips and small talk, he learned Mia ran a small floral business called Bloom and Haven, focused on teaching children to grow and gift plants. Flowers help people talk, she said, stirring her pasta absent-mindedly. Kids who can't say, I'm sorry or I miss you, they can say it with color. The words lingered in the air like the faint scent of lavender. He noticed her hands, small cuts from thorns, faint green stains along her nails, signs of real work, not polish. Outside, the rain eased to a drizzle. The violin shifted to something slow and familiar. For a man who'd lived surrounded by precision and perfection, there was something disarming about her unguarded warmth. When the check arrived, Mia reached for her purse, but he shook his head. It's fine. No, please, I was the one late. Then let's call it even, he said. You brought hope. I was short on that. She blinked, startled by the sincerity in his tone. Thank you, she whispered. Ellie leaned over the table, whispering to her mother, but loud enough for him to hear. Mommy, I think he likes flowers. Mia laughed softly, the sound gentle as rain against glass. And for the first time in a long while, Liam didn't mind the sound of his own heartbeat. By the time dessert arrived, the air between them had softened. The waitress brought Ellie a single scoop of vanilla ice cream with a cherry on top, and the little girl gasped as if she'd just been handed treasure. She's easily impressed, Mia said, smiling faintly. It's her first time somewhere this fancy. I can tell, Liam replied, watching as Ellie arranged the cherry perfectly in the center of the bowl before eating around it, careful not to ruin the symmetry. She takes after her mother. The compliment caught Mia off guard. Oh, thank you, I think. She brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, cheeks coloring. I'm usually knee-deep in soil or flower buckets. Not exactly fine dining attire. It suits you, he said without thinking, and she laughed nervously, shaking her head. You sound like someone who doesn't get dirt under his nails often. You'd be right, he admitted, smiling wryly. My world's more sterile. He didn't mean to sound tired, but she noticed. Her eyes, hazel with specks of green, held a quiet empathy that disarmed him more than charm ever could. For a few minutes, the world outside their table, its hum of wealth and formality, seemed to blur away. Bloom and Haven, he said suddenly. That's your shop? My small empire, she teased lightly. We started after the pandemic. A few moms in the neighborhood needed work, and I loved plants since I was a kid. It's grown, but barely. Some weeks it feels like holding a bouquet together with tape. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Still, it's ours, Ellie interrupted proudly, mouth dotted with ice cream. Mommy's flowers fix people. When Ms. Gonzalez's dog went to heaven, Mommy made her a garden box. She cried, but said it helped. Ellie, Mia said softly, embarrassed. That's enough storytelling. It's fine, Liam said, amused. I think your daughter may have a better PR pitch than most executives I know. We can't afford PR, Mia said dryly. Just heart. And caffeine. She told him about teaching kids to plant seedlings in recycled cans, about the joy in watching a child's first sprout, the way color brought comfort to the elderly. Liam listened more than he spoke, realizing how long it had been since someone talked to him without calculating what he could offer in return. He found himself studying the small things, the way she tapped the rim of her glass when thinking, how she glanced at Ellie between sentences, always checking she was okay. It was the quiet rhythm of a person used to caring first and resting later. "You must have loved flowers too," she said suddenly, her tone gentle. "The way you look at them, it's not just polite interest." He hesitated. "My wife, she loved them. Lavender especially." Mia nodded slowly, understanding what he hadn't said. "Lavender means grace," she murmured, "and patience." "Then it suits her," he said softly. For a heartbeat, silence held them. Then Ellie, oblivious to the weight of adult grief, slid her napkin, drawing across the table. "Look, Mr. Carter, I drew us." The sketch was of 3 stick figures sitting at a round table under a smiling sun. Each figure held a flower. He stared at it longer than necessary, then folded it carefully and tucked it into his jacket pocket. "It's perfect," he said. Ellie grinned. "Mommy says people who eat alone forget what flowers smell like. You shouldn't do that." Mia froze, horrified. "Ellie, that's not—" But Liam was smiling, the first genuine smile she'd seen all evening. "Your mom's right," he said softly. "I had forgotten." The bill arrived. Mia reached for it immediately. "Please, tonight's already been a circus because of me." "Let me," he insisted. "You brought the flowers, remember? They were my daughter's idea." "Then thank her for saving the night." He handed the waitress his card, ignoring Mia's protest. The rain had stopped when they stepped outside. The pavement glistened beneath streetlights, and the air carried that clean, electric scent only storms could leave behind. Mia fumbled with her umbrella. "You don't have to walk us out." "I insist," he said. "Call it PR." She laughed softly. Ellie hopped along the wet sidewalk, splashing in puddles. "Mommy says rain helps everything grow faster," she announced. "Even people." "She might be right," Liam said. At the curb, a car honked. His driver pulled up. He turned to Mia. "Thank you for showing up, even late." "Thank you," she replied, her voice low. "For not leaving." He watched them walk away, Mia holding Ellie's hand, the small bouquet still clutched in the girl's other fist. Just before they disappeared around the corner, something small fluttered to the ground near the restaurant entrance. He picked it up, a lavender hair clip, faintly smelling of soap and rain. For reasons he couldn't explain, he slipped it into his pocket next to Ellie's drawing. That night, as Seattle's skyline blinked outside his penthouse window, he placed the clip on his desk beside his late wife's photo. The faint scent of lavender lingered, threading past the ache in his chest, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel entirely alone. The next morning, sunlight leaked through Seattle's thin gray clouds, catching on the silver edge of a lavender hair clip resting on Liam's desk. He'd left it there all night, beside Ellie's drawing and his late wife's photograph. For hours he'd worked, then stopped, then worked again, his mind circling back to a small voice saying, "Mommy says rain helps everything grow faster, even people." When his assistant called about a board meeting, he canceled without hesitation. Instead, he found himself driving through the old Queen Anne district until a sign appeared through the drizzle. Bloom and Haven. The shop looked like a pocket of spring pressed between brick walls. A painted bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, releasing the scent of soil, eucalyptus, and something faintly citrus. The air felt alive. Behind the counter, Mia stood arranging pale white lilies into tall glass vases, her sleeves rolled up, apron smudged with green. She looked up, surprised. "Mr. Carter? I believe this belongs to someone," he said, holding up the lavender clip. "Ellie's hair has been missing its sparkle." Her laughter filled the room softly. "She's been asking if you found it. I told her billionaires don't usually run lost and found services." "Only for special cases," he replied. The doorbell tinkled again, and Ellie ran out from the back room, wearing an oversized apron that nearly touched her sneakers. "Mr. Fancy Suit," she exclaimed, arms wide. "You came back." "I did," he said, crouching to her level. "And I brought your missing treasure." She grabbed the clip, beaming. "Mom said maybe you'd forget." "I tried," Liam said. "Didn't work." Mia watched quietly, something gentle crossing her face. "We were just finishing a delivery order," she said. "You picked a busy morning." "I can help," he offered before thinking. "I've been told I'm good with logistics." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you also good with stems and ribbons?" "Unproven," he admitted, "but I learn fast." She handed him a roll of twine and nodded toward a small workstation. "All right, Mr. Fancy Suit. Tie these like this, 2 loops, cross, pull tight. No CEO shortcuts." He followed her instruction clumsily. His first attempt ended in a lopsided knot, which made Ellie giggle. "You tied it like a shoelace," she said. "Mom says every bow should look like it's breathing." "That's a high standard," Liam said, retrying. "Well, flowers deserve respect," Mia said. "They're living things. We just borrow their beauty for a while." Her words struck him deeper than expected. He looked around. The scattered petals on the counter, the faint classical music from a small radio, sunlight filtering through misted glass. Everything about this place felt deliberate yet unguarded, like its owner. When Mia stepped away to answer the shop phone, Liam walked to a corner shelf where potted plants were labeled with handwritten cards. Patience, gratitude, forgiveness. He touched the lavender plant sitting under a sign that read, "For New Beginnings." Mia returned, catching his expression. "That one's popular," she said. "People buy it when they're ready to start over." "Do you believe in that?" he asked. "Starting over?" She shrugged lightly. "Some things don't start over. They just grow differently after being broken." For a moment, he didn't speak. "You sound like someone who knows." "Don't we all?" she said softly. He didn't push further. Instead, he noticed the framed photo near the register, a much younger Mia holding a newborn, standing beside an older woman with kind eyes. "My grandmother," she said when she caught him looking. "She raised me. Ellie never met her, but she taught me everything I know about growing things." Her voice turned wistful. "She used to say, 'Every flower is a goodbye turned beautiful.'" Liam nodded slowly. "Then maybe beauty is how we survive it." She smiled at him in quiet agreement. The bell above the door rang again, announcing a customer, and Mia excused herself to help. While she was busy, Ellie climbed onto a stool beside Liam and whispered, "Do you like my mom?" He blinked, caught off guard. "What makes you ask that?" "You look at her like the sun just came out." He chuckled under his breath. "You're very observant." "She works too much," Ellie continued matter-of-factly. "I tell her to rest, but she says flowers don't wait. Maybe you can make her rest." "I'll see what I can do," he promised quietly. When they left the shop 20 minutes later, Mia walked him to the door, wiping her hands on her apron. You really didn't have to come all the way here just to return a clip. I know, he said simply, but I wanted to. She hesitated, then handed him a small clay pot with lavender. For patience and new beginnings, she said. It's a shop tradition. Then I'll try to keep it alive. That's all any of us can do. He nodded, tucking the pot carefully under his arm. Outside, the rain had started again, soft, persistent. He stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, watching her through the window as she returned to her work. Hair falling over her face, completely unaware that she'd just become the first thing in years he didn't want to lose. A week later, Seattle's waterfront glittered beneath strings of golden bulbs, the air alive with the hum of laughter, live jazz, and the faint sweetness of roasted chestnuts drifting between vendor tents. The annual Festival of Light and Bloom, the city's most anticipated spring event, had finally arrived. Beneath the soft glow of lanterns, hundreds of floral installations curved around the promenade like living sculptures, each designed by local artists. At the heart of it all stood one name in delicate script: Decor by Bloomhaven. Mia hadn't slept in 2 days. She'd built every arch and bouquet with trembling hands and stubborn pride, too focused to feel exhaustion. When she stepped back to check her final display, a cascade of tulips spiraling into a fountain, Ellie clapped her small hands. It's like fireworks that don't disappear. Exactly, Mia said, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. Flowers deserve their moment, too. She had no idea that a few blocks away, Liam Carter was stepping out of a sleek black car, adjusting his cufflinks while ignoring the flashing cameras that always followed him. He hadn't been to this event in years. His company, Carter Innovations, was the lead sponsor, but he had delegated appearances to his PR director. Until tonight. Something had shifted since the morning he walked out of Bloomhaven with that lavender pot. He wanted to see where her flowers lived when the world noticed them. Smile a little, Liam, came a voice beside him. It's a festival, not a board meeting. Isabel Grant, his PR head, smoothed her champagne-colored dress with a knowing smile. Your presence here matters. People need to see the man behind the foundation, not just the corporation. He offered a polite nod, his thoughts elsewhere. The crowd shimmered with movement as they entered the main pavilion. Cameras turned, flashes blinked. Isabel leaned close. Let's make a quick round. One interview, then we can breathe. Liam's attention was already drawn to the central arch, bursting with flowers, the unmistakable style of Bloomhaven. Lavender tucked beside white tulips, each bloom placed with the kind of care that felt almost personal. And there, kneeling near the base of the display, adjusting a lantern, was Mia. The moment he saw her, something in him settled. Isabel followed his gaze and stiffened slightly. Oh, the florist, she said. She's local, talented, apparently. More than that, he murmured. Isabel's eyes flickered with recognition and calculation. Would you like to meet her? It might make a nice photo for tomorrow's press. The CEO supporting small businesses. She doesn't need to be used like that, he said. Relax, Isabel replied lightly. I'll handle it. Before he could stop her, she gestured to the nearby photographer. Over here, please. Mr. Carter's about to greet our featured artisan. Mia straightened just as the flash went off, startled. Mr. Carter? She said, her voice a mix of surprise and relief. You came. I wanted to see your work, he said honestly. It's extraordinary. Ellie peeked out from behind a display, her small face glowing under the lantern light. "Mr. Fancy Suit," she exclaimed. The photographers laughed, snapping more pictures. Liam crouched to greet her, and the little girl handed him a tiny bouquet she'd been hiding behind her back. "These are for you," she said proudly. "Mom made the big ones, but I made this one myself." He smiled, taking the flowers gently. "They're perfect." It should have been a sweet, private moment. Instead, Isabel's voice rang bright and artificial. "Let's make sure the press captures that. A lovely story, our CEO and his favorite florist's little helper." Mia's eyes widened in alarm. "Wait, no, she's not supposed to—" But another camera flash cut her off. In seconds, several reporters swarmed closer. "Ms. Lawson, are you part of the Carter Innovations campaign? Is this collaboration official? Did you come with Mr. Carter tonight?" Their questions tangled like static. Mia froze, clutching Ellie's shoulders protectively. "Please, no photos of her." "It's fine," Isabel interjected, smiling at the cameras. "A charming local touch for our community image. This is Bloomin' Haven's owner and her lovely daughter." She turned to Liam, her tone silky. "See? Human connection sells hope." His jaw tightened. "That's enough, Isabel." But the flashes continued, relentless. Mia's face burned with humiliation as Ellie buried her face in her mother's skirt, overwhelmed. Within minutes, the moment spiraled out of control. Later that night, headlines spread across social media. "Single mom florist crashes CEO gala. Child hand delivers flowers to Carter." The photo showed Mia mid-blink, Ellie clutching the bouquet, and Liam caught between them, looking startled. The narrative was cruel, twisting warmth into spectacle. By morning, Mia's inbox overflowed with comments, some mocking, some venomous. Orders were canceled. Parents withdrew their kids from her floral workshops, afraid of publicity issues. She shut the shop's door and drew the blinds, her phone buzzing unanswered. Meanwhile, Liam scrolled through the article in his penthouse, disbelief giving way to anger as he recognized the watermark of Isabel's own PR division on the image file. When she appeared in his office the next morning, smiling as if nothing were wrong, he didn't stand. "You used them," he said quietly. "You turned a child's kindness into a headline." Isabel's confidence faltered. "It was harmless. Good PR, really. People love authenticity." "At whose expense?" His voice was calm, but the words carried steel. "You're suspended effective immediately. HR will handle the rest." "Liam, leave." She hesitated, then walked out, heels echoing down the marble corridor. Alone again, he looked out at the gray city stretching toward the sound. Somewhere out there was a flower shop with its lights off, and a little girl who had only wanted to make the world a little brighter. He set down his phone and whispered to no one. "You deserved better." Rain swept across the city again, soft but steady, washing color from the streets. For 2 days, Mia Lawson hadn't stepped outside. Bloomin' Haven stayed dark, its closed sign half hidden by the reflections of passing cars. Inside, boxes of unsold flowers drooped by the counter, their petals curling at the edges. On the couch, Ellie drew quietly, crayons scattered like tiny lifeboats on a stormy sea. "Mommy?" she asked softly. "Are we in trouble?" Mia looked up from her untouched tea. "No, sweetheart," she said, forcing a smile. "We're just waiting for the weather to change." But she wasn't sure if she meant the sky or her life. The article had torn through their world faster than any storm. 100 strangers online had turned one innocent gesture into a scandal. Single mom seeks attention. exploiting her child for fame. She deleted every message, but their words clung like burrs. Her trust, her pride, her hard-earned calm, all trampled overnight. She'd thought about calling Liam, then stopped. What could she say? He was a billionaire. She was a florist who'd stumbled into his world like a misplaced petal. Maybe silence was safer. That afternoon, thunder rumbled faintly over the sound. The doorbell rang. Mia froze. Through the rain-smeared glass, she saw him, Liam, standing beneath a black umbrella, a bouquet of white tulips in hand. Her first instinct was to lock the door. Her second was to open it before her heart changed its mind. "You shouldn't be here," she said as soon as he stepped inside. His coat dripped onto the floor, dark against the worn rug. "Probably not," he agreed quietly. "But I needed to see you." She crossed her arms, not out of anger, but to keep herself from shaking. "The world already saw enough, don't you think?" "That's why I'm here." He held out the bouquet. "Tulips. They mean apology, but I didn't bring them to ask forgiveness. I brought them because words don't feel enough." She stared at the flowers, but didn't take them. "You can't fix this with a gesture, Liam. A headline fades, but my daughter's trust doesn't. She was crying this morning because her teacher said she couldn't bring flowers to class anymore. Do you know how that feels?" His expression cracked, grief bleeding through his composure. "Yes," he said softly. "It feels like losing something pure because the world can't see it without twisting it." His voice carried a roughness she hadn't heard before. "Isabel used you and Ellie to push a narrative she thought would help me. I fired her. But that doesn't undo what happened." "No, it doesn't. Which is why I'm not here to defend myself." He took a step closer. "I'm here to make it right. If you'll let me." "How?" she asked, almost a whisper. "By telling the truth, publicly, and by doing something good with what they meant for harm." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small folded document. "The Haven Grant," he explained. "A foundation under Carter Innovations. It'll fund single mothers who run small businesses, starting with yours." "I don't want charity." "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's correction." He met her eyes. "You built something beautiful with your hands, Mia. You shouldn't have to rebuild it alone because of someone else's greed." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the drumming rain on the awning. Ellie peeked from the hallway, clutching her stuffed bunny. "Mom," she whispered, "he's the flower man." Mia turned to her daughter, then back to him. "Why would you risk your reputation for this?" "Because you're not the one who should have paid the price," he said simply. "And because I care." The words landed softly but hit deep. For a moment she forgot to breathe. "You don't have to say anything now," he added, his voice gentler. "Tomorrow morning, there's a press event at the community greenhouse. I'll take responsibility for everything. But I'd like you to be there, if only to see the truth untangle." He set the tulips on the counter. "They're not for forgiveness," he said, meeting her eyes. "They're for hope." He turned to leave, but Ellie ran up and tugged his sleeve. "Wait," she said. "Mom says flowers fix things too." She took one tulip from the bunch and handed it back to him. "So you can fix people too." The earnestness in her face made something tighten in his chest. "Thank you, Ellie," he said softly. "I'll do my best." When the door closed behind him, the shop felt different, still quiet, but no longer suffocating. Mia stood staring at the tulips glistening under the dim light. Each petal seemed to hold a small reflection of rain and forgiveness. Maybe storms, she thought, were just another kind of watering. The next morning dawned gray but strangely still, the kind of quiet Seattle morning when the world feels like it's holding its breath. Mia woke before Ellie, the smell of rain still clinging to the air. The tulips from last night stood in a glass jar by the window, their white petals open wide as if listening. She had barely slept. Every part of her wanted to stay hidden, but Liam's words kept circling her mind. "I'll take responsibility for everything. You just need to be there to see the truth untangle." At 9 a.m., she dressed Ellie, braided her hair, and drove toward the community greenhouse, the same place where Bloom and Haven had held its very first children's workshop 2 years ago. She had no idea what to expect. When they arrived, the parking lot was already half full. Reporters, photographers, city officials, and local residents crowding beneath umbrellas. Large banners hung over the entrance. The Haven Grant launch, Carter Innovations X-Community. Mia froze by the gate. "Mom," Ellie whispered, tugging her hand. "Are we in trouble again?" "Not today," Mia said softly. "Today we just listen." Inside, the air was warm and humid, filled with the scent of wet soil and mint. Rows of seedlings glowed under gentle lights. At the front, a podium had been set up beside a small stage surrounded by lavender plants. Liam stood there, calm but unsmiling, speaking quietly with a few staff members. When he saw Mia and Ellie enter, he stepped down from the stage and approached, umbrella in hand, though they were indoors. "You came," he said. "I wasn't sure you would." "You asked me to see the truth," she said. "I came to see if you meant it." He nodded. "Then I hope I don't disappoint you." A murmur passed through the crowd as the event began. Microphones clicked on, cameras lifted. The moderator introduced him. "Today, Carter Innovations officially launches the Haven Grant, a new initiative to support single mothers and independent business owners rebuilding after hardship." Liam stepped to the microphone. "Before I explain this program," he began, "I need to speak about what brought us here." The crowd hushed. Last week, an image of me and a florist named Mia Lawson and her daughter Ellie circulated across social media. It was portrayed as a publicity stunt. That story was false. Ms. Lawson and her child were not seeking attention. They were victims of exploitation by someone within my company. And that ends today. Gasps rippled through the audience. Liam continued, steady but emotional. Ms. Lawson's shop, Bloom and Haven, was responsible for many of the floral designs you see tonight. Her work inspired this project. The Haven Grant will fund and mentor single mothers running small creative businesses. It's named after her store. Because that name, Haven, means exactly what I want this foundation to be: a safe place for new beginnings. Mia felt her throat tighten. Around her, people began to applaud. Reporters scribbled notes. Flashes burst. But none of it felt invasive this time. It felt like light breaking through fog. Then Liam did something unexpected. He turned from the podium and gestured toward her. "Mia, would you say a few words?" Every instinct screamed to decline. Public speaking had never been her strength. But Ellie's small hand slipped into hers, grounding her. She walked slowly to the stage. Her heart pounded, but when she looked out at the crowd, neighbors, parents, even a few former customers, something steadied inside her. "I never planned to be here," she began. "I make flowers for a living. I like quiet things, gardens, small voices, moments that grow slowly. But when people wrote lies about us, I realized silence lets those lies live longer. So here's the truth. We didn't come to that gala to be seen. We came to deliver flowers. And sometimes, kindness gets misunderstood. But kindness is never a PR strategy. It's a choice. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the greenhouse fans. Then, slowly, the crowd began to clap. Soft at first, then rising until it filled the space like rain on glass. Ellie rushed forward and threw her arms around her mother's legs. "You did it, Mommy," she whispered. From the side of the stage, Liam's eyes met Mia's, pride flickering beneath quiet relief. Off in the corner, Isabel watched from the doorway, uninvited, her expression unreadable, before turning and slipping away. The reporter's questions resumed, but this time the tone was different. Respectful, curious. Mia stepped back from the microphone and exhaled, the tension leaving her shoulders. When the event ended, people approached to shake her hand, to thank her, to ask about Bloom and Haven. Someone pressed a note into her palm, a city partnership proposal for a community garden project. The air inside the greenhouse felt lighter, brighter, almost alive. Liam joined her by the rows of lavender, where Ellie was crouched, counting petals. "You were extraordinary," he said quietly. "No," she replied, smiling faintly, "just honest." He glanced around at the crowd dispersing, the camera crews packing up. "You know," he said, "you don't owe this city anything. You could have stayed home." "I did it for Ellie," she said, her eyes soft. "And maybe a little for me." He looked at her then, not the florist or the scandal or the headline, but the woman who'd faced it all and still found grace. "Then maybe," he said, "we both got our new beginning." 2 months later, the world looked different, warmer, softer, even in Seattle's gray light. The Greenhouse Haven project had grown from an idea into a place, a living garden of light, rebuilt by volunteers, funded by Liam's grant, and designed by Mia herself. She'd traded sleepless nights of fear for sleepless nights of creation, wiring lanterns, trimming vines, painting signs with Ellie's help. The scandal had faded, replaced by a quiet story that people wanted to believe in again. A single mom, a florist, a second chance. On the evening of the opening, the sky blushed orange over the bay. Rows of families and local vendors lined the courtyard, music drifting through the air. Lanterns shaped like flowers hung from the glass ceiling, unlit for now, waiting for the cue. Mia adjusted the hem of her pale blue dress, nerves fluttering. She wasn't used to speeches, lights, or crowds that cheered her name. Ellie, in a little white cardigan, twirled beside her holding a small basket of petals. "Mommy," she said, eyes wide, "is he coming?" Mia smiled faintly. He said he'd try, but she wasn't sure. She hadn't seen Liam in weeks. After the launch, he'd been consumed with rebuilding Carter innovations from within, ensuring the Haven grant became more than a headline. They texted sometimes, brief messages filled with gratitude, quiet humor, and things left unsaid. Then, as if answering Ellie's question, a shadow stretched across the path. Liam approached, not in his usual tailored suit, but in rolled-up sleeves and a navy vest, holding a small box. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "You were worth waiting for," she teased, surprising herself. He looked around, visibly moved. "You built this." "We built this," she corrected. "It's yours too." The ceremony began. The mayor gave a short speech, followed by applause. When it was Mia's turn, she stood at the podium, hands trembling slightly. 2 months ago, she began, I thought my work, my world, had been destroyed by a misunderstanding. But flowers have this strange magic. They teach us that growth and grace often come from being buried first. The audience quieted. Tonight isn't about me. It's about all of us who've ever been broken and still found a way to bloom. Her eyes found Liam's in the crowd. For every person who believed something good could still come out of a mistake, thank you. The crowd erupted into applause. Ellie ran forward and tugged the pull cord. Instantly, light exploded across the greenhouse. Dozens of LED flowers opened in synchronized rhythm, bathing everyone in hues of gold, rose, and lavender. Gasps turned into laughter. The lights pulsed gently, alive. It's reading her heartbeat, Liam said softly beside Mia, nodding toward Ellie. Every bloom responds to it. I had the tech team set it up from her little fitness tracker. She's the garden's heart now. Mia turned to him, her eyes glistening. You did this? You inspired it, he said. You showed me that people grow when they're seen, not managed. She laughed through the tears. You and your metaphors. You started them, he countered. The music swelled, an instrumental version of Here Comes the Sun. Children ran between the glowing flowers, their laughter echoing under the glass dome. Ellie stopped and looked up at the lights. Mommy, she whispered in awe. It's like the stars moved closer. Mia knelt beside her. Maybe they did. Liam crouched next to them, his sleeve brushing hers. You know, he said, I used to think healing meant moving on, but maybe it just means letting the light back in. For a moment, the three of them stayed like that, surrounded by soft illumination, faces reflected in the glass above like constellations rearranging themselves. The crowd began to thin as the night deepened. Volunteers packed up cables, families carried sleepy kids toward their cars, but Mia lingered by the central path. Liam joined her, holding the small box he'd brought earlier. You forgot to open this, he said, handing it over. Inside lay a delicate pendant, a silver outline of a tulip, its stem forming the shape of a heart. For when you doubt how far you've come, he said quietly. White tulips, she murmured, smiling. Apology, forgiveness, and hope. Mostly hope, he replied. She fastened the chain around her neck, then took his hand. Small, simple, certain. No cameras, no headlines, just a promise silently understood. Together they looked out at the glowing greenhouse, where light swayed gently between leaves, reflecting off damp glass like hundreds of tiny suns. You know, she said, for the first time, I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be. Liam squeezed her hand. Home, he said. Not a place, a feeling. Ellie ran toward them, laughing, petals scattering behind her. Mia bent to scoop her up, and together the three stood framed in golden light, the lanterns flickering above like blessings. In the reflection of the glass dome, they looked less like three separate lives and more like one, imperfect, mended, and blooming again. Love doesn't happen overnight. It grows quietly, like light between leaves. If this story touched your heart, share it so another one can bloom too.